All right, everybody, welcome to the show, and boy, oh boy, do I have a doozy for you today. I have been itching to get back on air, so I got an amazing compilation of all of the people who very confidently predicted a red wave in the midterm elections, and it's so fun. Oh, I want you to inject it straight into my veins. Oh, it's so beautiful. So I'm going to cover that. I also have the DeSantis versus Trump war is not only heating up, but we've now... my prediction was so correct, I didn't even know how correct it was. Like, I am somehow more correct than me. It's incredible. I have a bunch of evidence to share with you on the DeSantis versus Trump front. There's a real seismic shift currently happening right now. And then later on in the show, I have a right-wing televangelist who said that God spoke to him before the election and told him what the results would be. Lovely, lovely clip. And then Republicans go full classist, going after Pennsylvania working class voters because they chose Fetterman over Oz. I have so much to say about that. So anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started here. So, I have a compilation here for you of all of the goofballs who were super confident that a red wave was on the way. So I want to play it, we'll discuss it, and there's definitely a lot to say about it.
So did you hear the news? There was no red wave last night. While this is a pretty surprising development to most people, including us here at the desk, just imagine being a viewer of Fox News today after weeks of being promised one.
Be an analyst for a second. Does it feel like a red wave?
It feels like a red wave, Brian.
You know, your predictions of a red wave are accurate.
Somebody made a surfboard, said the red wave is coming.
Red wave rising.
That red wave that I'm convinced is coming.
The reports I'm seeing show a big red wave coming.
Sleepy Joe just guaranteed a red wave in Pennsylvania.
There's a lot of energy on the ground. You probably hear the rally in the background right now. We think we're going to have a big red wave in Michigan.
Wow.
Democrats are bracing for the worst case scenario, a red tsunami.
We are officially on a red tsunami watch.
Sean, we're going to see a red tsunami.
Red tsunami grows.
That means...
I love the ones who went as far as to say red tsunami because obviously tsunami implies even bigger than a red wave. So if you say that the Republican Tea Party wave of 2010, which was 63 seats they picked up, if that's a wave, what's a tsunami? Like 70 plus seats that are picked up? I mean, that's how I interpret that, right? I'm going to give you the actual numbers in a minute.
Red tsunami.
We're not just going to see a red wave. We're going to see a red tsunami.
Poverty, joblessness, critical race theory, crazy gender ideology in our schools. We are going to see a red tsunami.
By the way, Stephen Miller, that guy right there, is the least charismatic man in America. He makes Wolf Blitzer seem like a dynamic and charismatic speaker.
Lastly, your prediction for tonight.
I think we're going to have a red wave. I think it's going to be maybe bigger than anyone thought.
On Tuesday, we will be part of a big red wave that says enough is enough.
Up next, Elon Musk ready to ride the big red wave.
Elon Musk tweeted massive red wave.
Massive red wave.
Massive red wave.
Massive red wave.
You're about to see a red wave that makes day after tomorrow look like nothing.
That's going to be responsible for the red wave.
Joe, no.
I think the red wave that's coming is going to be like the elevator doors opening up in The Shining.
Rogan said that the...
Joe, no. What are you doing, Joe? What are you doing, Joe? Oh.
red wave is going to look like the elevator doors opening and the blood pouring out of the elevator in The Shining.
Like the elevator doors opening up in The Shining.
That is correct, except it's not going to be an elevator. It's going to look more like Deep Impact, the tsunami at the end, but colored red.
Remember that?
Come on, man. Come on. Just like a hint of humility. Just the tiniest bit of hedging would have been appreciated. Just a handful of caveats. Nothing. These people are all in. They are more than all in. We need to invent a new term, which is like beyond all in.
Taya Leone Deep Impact disaster movie, that's the red wave tsunami that'll come ashore.
It's going to be a brutal week for the Democrats beginning on Tuesday.
And frankly, I've already DVR'd CNN and MSNBC for election night, not because I'm going to watch, but just because I want to enjoy the tears post-red tsunami.
What happened to the red wave, Congresswoman?
Look, on a serious note, why would you trust any of these people from here on out? look, it's one thing to be wrong. If you're a commentator, you're going to be wrong from time to time. It happens. It's another thing to be, like, dead wrong, but also being arrogant about it in the process, where you're so convinced you're right that you don't even make the counter argument. You don't even steel man the opposite position. And look, as somebody who is a commentator, you guys saw every single thing I said leading up to the election. You could tell that I was super duper agnostic, and I can make the argument for both sides. So on the Republican side, you have all the fundamentals of the economy, right? Only, I think it was 19% of the country said we're on the right track. You have inflation, which is still very high. You have gas prices, which have been a major issue. Republicans have successfully made crime an issue, and they just repeat crime, crime, crime over and over again. You have the pendulum historically in modern American history, where when one party wins the White House in the next midterms, they typically get wiped out. So you have all these things. I can make the argument. I can make the argument for, hey, Republicans are going to do really well. But then on the other hand, I told you guys all of the complicating factors. So, Roe versus Wade was overturned. A right that was a right since 1973 was just tossed out in a super authoritarian move by a Republican Supreme Court. That matters. 53% of the candidates on the Republican side either denied or questioned the last election still at this late date, which definitely has implications about how they wouldn't be stewards of our democracy in any serious way. That's a big issue. Then you also have the policy wins of the Biden administration. Like him or dislike him, all you have to do is read the poll numbers. Before he did the student loan debt reduction, his approval rating was super low with young people down in Donald Trump territory. After he did it, he skyrocketed in the approvals. You have the pardoning of federal, weed offenders, nonviolent weed offenders. That's going to help thousands of people be able to get a job. You have the IRA, which had the 15% corporate minimum tax rate and all these other provisions that are genuinely good for working class people, lowering prescription drug costs for the elderly. So in other words, you guys saw I was struggling before the election. I didn't want to do a prediction because I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. I see so many different complicating factors, but I said, if you held a gun to my head, what would I say is going to happen? Well, my guess is, and I'm not solid on this at all, 51 or 52 Senate seats for Republicans, and they'll pick up 20 or 25 seats. So that would mean it's not a red wave. That would mean it's a small pickup, because the 2010 Tea Party wave was they picked up 63 seats in the House. So again, my prediction was 20 to 25. So not really a red wave, just a small red win, and 51 or 52 in the Senate. Well, what are we looking at now? It's actually Democrats held on to the Senate. They're either going to have the 50 votes plus Kamala, which would be the same as it is right now, effectively, or they'll get to 51. Depends on if they win Georgia or not, because there's Warnock versus Walker is going to a runoff, so we'll see. So Democrats narrowly held on to the Senate, and it looks like, as I'm talking to you guys right now, the Republicans are going to win anywhere from 1 to 6 seats in the House. It is possible, but it's a long shot that Democrats end up with a 1-seat advantage in the House, but it's looking more like Republicans will win anywhere from 1 to 6 seats. So I was a lot more correct than these people. And you guys could tell I was, really struggling with it, and I was trying to give all my fleshed out thoughts. Why would you trust any of these people? There was no tempering their comments. There was no, well, let me give you the complicating factors. There was no, a data point which turned out to be actually really important is that in the 5 recent special elections, it was Democrats who massively overperformed the polls. And that's what happened in this election too. And that was a data point I had brought up a number of times, like, hey, yeah, historically in 2016 and 2020, Republicans outperformed the polls, but in the recent special elections, it was the Democrats that did it. None of these people brought up that point. None of them did it. Look, it is your duty as a commentator to go where the evidence goes. You can give your opinion, you can give your take, but you need to go where the evidence goes and go through all of the detail. And none of these people did it. None of them. And it's super fucking embarrassing. It reminds me back in 2012 when you had all these Republican pundits were saying that Mitt Romney is going to have a crushing victory over Barack Obama, and there was just no data to support that position. You could say, hey, I wouldn't be harping away on somebody if they said, I think Mitt Romney's going to win, but it's going to be like a kind of a small win. It'll be a close election, but Romney will win. I wouldn't be harping away at that person. That happens all the time, being slightly off, but being nuanced. But there were people who were saying, Romney's going to win over 330 electoral votes. And it's like there was no data to come to that conclusion. To be fair to these people, the red wave people, there was some data that said perhaps it'll be a red wave. But again, to not even make the counter argument is just, it's journalistic malpractice. It's commentator malpractice. Like, you have to give all of the arguments, all of the data, put it on the table, and then let people make their own mind up. Now, I have one more for you. I saved this one for last because I just think he's a special boy. This is a special boy here. One, David Rubin. He had some thoughts for us, and this is classic. Now, remember, Dave Rubin was not only wrong in his 2020 prediction where he thought Trump was going to win, he was wrong even after the election. He was talking as if Trump had won. So, in other words, you know all those articles that talk about the red mirage scenario, where on election night it'll look like Republicans are doing better than they are, and then the more the mail-ins come in, it'll probably flip more Democratic because Trump has been saying, don't do mail-in voting, only vote on election day, and then that's exactly what happened. It looked like the Republicans were up, it looked like Trump was up, and then the more votes came in, as expected, the Democrats ended up winning. Well, he was acting like Trump won as they were still counting votes. Like, he didn't see, he does this for a living. He didn't even see a single article or read a single article on the potential red mirage scenario. So he was out there embarrassing himself, telling, oh, you're wrong. All these ghouls who predicted a Biden win, you're wrong. And it's like, you're just objectively bad at this. But now we have a new one. This was, just before the election. He's going to give us his prediction. This ought to be good.
Jeb says, Dave, you keep asking everyone what their election predictions are, but what are your election predictions? It is almost beyond imagination that Fetterman could win. Okay, so
It is, okay. If you crunch all of the data, that race was like 50-50, or maybe 55-45, leaning in the Oz direction. Fetterman, of course, ended up winning. But he says it's beyond imagination? Why would that be beyond imagination? What, are you going to overlook every single negative thing about Oz because you're a standard Republican? Are you going to overlook the fact he literally killed, 329 puppies? He's a carpetbagger who's from New Jersey, and people in Pennsylvania look at him like, you're not even really one of us. You're not even from this state. You're going to overlook when he said, he was asked how many houses he had, and he said, legitimately 2, when the answer was 10? You're going to overlook the fact he sells scam diet pills on TV? You're going to overlook all that. You're going to overlook the fact that his policy agenda doesn't help working class people. It's for the plutocrats and the oligarchs. You're just going to overlook all of that. I can't imagine a guy like Fetterman winning, even though for the overwhelming majority of the race, he was up big on Oz. This is the whole, it's pundit brain. He had a stroke, and I don't like that, so voters aren't going to like that, and I can't even imagine him winning. Well, then your imagination sucks balls. It sucks.
I think Oz will win there. I do think Blake Masters is going to win in Arizona. I really think
Blake Masters lost in Arizona. He lost big in Arizona.
The Senate, it could end up 54 Republicans. I know that's bullish. And, I know we're all in our own little bubbles and all that stuff, but I just think people have had it with the woke. There are no...
Bro, wokeness bad, bro. Dave Rubin has 1 point. He makes 514 different ways. Wokeness bad, bro. Did you know boys are boys and girls are girls? Did you know that? I don't even like college kids with purple hair, bro. I don't even like them, bro. I think they're crazy, bro. That's what I think. Wow, what a fucking brilliant thinker you are. Yeah, okay. Even if you care about that issue, you can't look at the situation in a fair way and realize, hey, maybe this is kind of down the list on the things people care about. Maybe something that they care about more is, the economy, wages. Maybe they care about their rights being taken away because the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade. Maybe they care about getting that little bit of help from the student loan debt reduction from the Biden administration. Just maybe. No. Nope. Wokeness is America's #1 issue. I've declared. I, Dave Rubin, have declared.
No rallies for Democrats. Everyone knows, even the most ardent Biden supporter knows that something is not right with Joe Biden. There's no momentum there. They're prepping us for no momentum. And the ideas were bad. All they had to do was not be horrible. What are you showing me here? Real Clear Politics is now predicting that New Hampshire will even get a Republican senator.
So that was Don or Dan Bolduc, who, by the way, Tulsi Gabbard endorsed. Far-right Republican. He went on Fox News to argue in the middle of the campaign. One of the first things he wants to do is roll back the reduction in pharmaceutical drug prices that the Biden administration got through. So he literally was arguing for higher drug prices on the campaign trail. By the way, he got blown out. Blown out.
There is real momentum here. Jeb says, Dave.
This is a guy, he's been wrong in all of his predictions, every step of the way. I think he was arguing that, like, Newsom was going to be successfully recalled in California. Got 2020 wrong, obviously got this massively wrong. Look, at some point, I have to ask you guys, and of course, most of the people watching this are people who are already listeners to Secular Talk. Love you guys, so you guys understand all this. But to anybody who just, like, stumbled across this video, who's watching it, I mean this question sincerely. Do you care about truth? Because if you care about truth, you got to stop believing the charlatans and the con men and the frauds. You have to stop. You have to try to separate out what I want to happen versus what I think is going to happen. And a lot of people are fundamentally incapable of doing it. But you know what? If they're incapable of doing it, they shouldn't be in this business. They shouldn't be doing political commentary. They shouldn't be acting like they're some sort of fucking soothsayer who can see into the future. There was no humility whatsoever, no caveats, no hedging. And ask yourself why that is. Ask yourself how they can miss so much, so badly. I mean, I love this stuff. I really do. I love this stuff. Because it just goes to show you none of these people have any shame, and they'll come out and act like nothing happened. That's what they're going to do. They'll all come out and act like nothing happened. It reminds me of CNBC during the 2008 stock market crash. They were out there right before it was happening saying, everything's fine. Everybody keep, investing with Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns and all these financial institutions. They're looking out for your best interest. There's not going to be a big recession. They would literally have the CEOs of these companies on air to say, it's all good. Everything's good. And then when all of these people were proven to be wrong, nobody cared. They were still out there doing their thing. Like, political commentary, news commentary, there's zero accountability. Look at the Iraq War. In the lead up to the Iraq War, everybody was arguing, we have to do it. It's the right thing to do. It's the moral thing to do. Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction. He's responsible for 9/11 because he worked with Osama bin Laden. All these claims that turned out to be dead wrong. When we learned they were dead wrong, all these people who were pushing for the war are still on the air. All the ones who were against it and were questioning it are gone. What does that tell you? We have more of an anti-meritocracy than a meritocracy. And new media was supposed to be a fix to that. New media, we're supposed to be better. But no. The problem we suffer from in new media is this thing called audience capture, where, a lot of these creators see what gets them the likes and sees what gets them more followers, and then they lean into that. And they end up, so it's, the audience ends up steering the direction of what they do. As opposed to, look, sometimes I got to come out here and tell you guys harsh truths. Sometimes I got to say, I don't agree on this, or I don't think this is going to go the way that we want it to go. And that's your responsibility as a host, to break free from the audience capture and separate out what I want to happen versus what I think is going to happen. And these guys just fundamentally incapable of doing it. Incapable of doing it. Again, I wouldn't begrudge them being wrong. I was a little wrong. Much less than everybody else, but I was a little wrong. But it's the arrogance, the certitude, the inability to think even for a second to steel man the opposite position. It's just fucking embarrassing. That's what it is. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.